Live baseball on MLB Network coming up Friday at 8 Eastern. It'll be Shohei Ohtani's spring debut, scheduled to DH against his old employer, the Angels. Watch the three-time MVP.
Homer. First at bat.
I mean, just even a question. Watch the three-time MVP's spring debut tomorrow, 8 Eastern, live on MLB Network, brought to you by T-Mobile. Let's say good morning to JP Morosi from news of Shohei finally getting out there in the spring, to the Major League roadmap that a couple of his countrymen have had. JP, good morning. The Yamamoto-Sugano stories are pretty interesting with parallels. Do I have that right?
Yes, Matt and Harold, good morning, and certainly good evening in Japan as we're having our show in the morning time here in the States. Two very important spring outings yesterday. Yoshinobu Yamamoto with the Dodgers and then Tomoyuki Sugano with the Baltimore Orioles. Let's start with Sugano. There he is. I love this detail. Jake Rill's story at MLB.com talked about how after the game, Sugano was asked, were you nervous at all before your Grapefruit League opener? And he said, no. One-word answer, no. And there's a reason why. Because the man on your right-hand side of the screen,
35.
Exactly, Harold. He's 35 years of age. He's 9 years older than Yamamoto. He's been the Central League MVP. He's pitched for the Tokyo Yomiuri Giants, one of the most storied franchises in world baseball. He actually pitched for Team Japan against the U.S. in the WBC back in 2017. So, no. The Grapefruit League opener, no stress for Sugano. Also with Yamamoto, remember, he's already building up to be sure that he can start one of those first couple games in Japan as the Dodgers move over there and play against the Chicago Cubs. And Yamamoto in general, guys, in a very different place than he was a year ago. Recall his first start for the Dodgers in Seoul, South Korea. He struggled a bit, but already now he's pitching into the third inning, much more comfortable, I think, in the North American style of play. And certainly it helps, Matt and Harold, to have this many fellow starting pitchers with the Los Angeles Dodgers. Blake Snell's already made his Cactus League debut. Really good velo for him early on. Gonsolin has made his return. I think Gonsolin becomes, in some ways, the forgotten man. People need to remember this guy was an all-star going back a couple years ago before the injuries happened for him. So the Dodgers, a plethora of great starting pitchers, and none more important right now than the man who was on the mound yesterday in Yoshinobu Yamamoto.
Yeah, the best 14-man starting rotation in the history of the sport. It's unbelievable. And some have suggested, JP, as you're well aware, that Sugano could be like a Shota Imanaga character, right? Coming over as the guy that not everybody was buzzing about, like Roki Sasaki, but coming over and being just as effective, if not more effective, than the quote-unquote star imports. Let's move you to a different division here and take you to the AL East for updates on a couple of players at different ends of the age spectrum who are off to pretty good starts this spring.
Let's start with Heston Kjerstad, who is Sugano's teammate in Baltimore. A really impressive start to the Grapefruit League for Kjerstad. And the main difference for him relative to last year is the absence of Anthony Santander. Now, of course, they did bring in O'Neill, but it seems to me that based on a lot of decisions the Orioles have made, that Kjerstad is someone who has a clearer path to playing time, as does potentially this man, Dominic Smith, back in New York, of course, a former Met. Really strong start for him. Multiple homers already this year. He's coming to camp in phenomenal shape. And with the uncertainty surrounding Giancarlo Stanton's availability, Dominic Smith could well have a spot on the Yankees opening day roster if he continues along this line of production. So there you see it. 2 homers already for him. Kjerstad has already homered once for the Baltimore Orioles. So as I believe this division is wide open. I know there's been a lot of talk about the Red Sox. They certainly have gotten better. The Yankees, the reigning American League champions, but they don't have Juan Soto any longer. The uncertainty surrounding Giancarlo Stanton. So as all of these teams look for a boost in spring training, Kjerstad and Smith making their cases for strong roles in Baltimore and New York, respectively, in 2025.
Our first rounders off to pretty good starts. All right, here we go. Buckle up. Let's get you to your beloved World Baseball Classic. 2 spots available for the event. Talk about Team Colombia first. We want to give everybody this information that you can watch the qualifiers March 3rd. That's 1 Eastern. That's on Monday. Brazil and Germany.
I played in Barranquilla.
And that you played in Barranquilla?
Yeah.
Really?
Yep. Remember, Matty, when I played in Barranquilla, Edgar Renteria was my bat boy. Remember that part?
That's exactly
There's
right.
the soundboard. I'll tell you what. So we'll get to the soundboard a little later, but I have some Matt Vasgersian sound in this one ready to go. This is the topsy-turvy history of Team Columbia at the WBC. Matt, you were there with me in Miami. Remember this well. They had a legitimate chance to upset Team USA in the tournament opener back in 2017. They led this game 2-0 midway through. And this is what tied it for the U.S. A wild pitch, third strike on Nolan Arenado. The U.S. ties the game, and then later on, Adam Jones, the walk-off hero, Team USA barely escapes. But, Matt, you remember this well. It wasn't the most heartbreaking loss. It was this one against the Dominican. Matty V on the call.
Line to left field. The catch is made by Bautista. The throw to the plate. Mercado's out, and we're going to extra innings. Columbia can't believe it.
In extras, the Dominican prevailed, but Colombia was back in the Classic in 2023. They actually beat Mexico, but then lost to Great Britain and Canada in their next two games before actually only losing by a run to the U.S. yet again. So Colombia, guys, has shown that they can compete with the best in the world. They almost beat the U.S. in 17 and in 23. They were basically a fraction of an inch away from beating the Dominican and actually winning the pool back in 2017. And then they beat Mexico last time around, the team that honestly should have knocked out Ohtani and Team Japan in the semifinals in Miami, only to then lose their next two games to Great Britain and Canada. So Colombia arriving into this tournament with
Canada.
Pressure. Yes, we all love Canada, Harold. For Colombia to arrive in this tournament, they have a really good chance to win this group and advance. But, Matt, you remember this well. I want to go back to that scene at home plate after Mercado was thrown out. If Colombia had scored that run, they would have won the group, and the Dominicans and Team USA would have had to play a second additional game to see who was going to go with them to San Diego. And you remember this well, Matty. We were there.
I don't remember it.
Yeah, we were. Well, listen, we were on the call. The biggest task that we had at the start of the next half inning was figuring out who had not been ejected from the game for Colombia.
That's right.
Because they had to make wholesale changes. Half the dugout was on the field arguing with the home plate umpire, and we had to figure out, okay, who is actually still eligible to play? Because I think multiple coaches, Renteria was out there. It was a scene in Miami.
It was a wild west.
Play.
It was a great play. It was a great tournament that year.
Man.
And Colombia came that close to slaying the mighty dragon, the Dominican Republic. That would have been unbelievable. JP, before we let you go very quickly, preview the next installment of the Road to Cooperstown podcast.
Our guest is our teammate, Jim Thome, and we're going to get to this sound right now. Jim Thome talking about how the inspiration for his swing and his setup came from Hollywood.
We were in Scranton, and I was I was trying to, find my way, find what we call as hitters the right rhythm, the right load, the right trigger to help unlock what we all, what we all want as a hitter, and that's to feel comfortable. And I was a hitter that would get preset early. Charlie Manuel knew that, and then. So Charlie watched The Natural, and in The Natural, he saw the rhythm of Robert Redford, and from there, it triggered. We're going to try this. So he called me in. We went out. We practiced it, and it took a few days, and then that rhythm and that little bit. Charlie always said to all of our Cleveland guys, a little bit means a lot, whether it's good or whether it's bad. And that little bit that he unlocked and helped me relax a little bit more, obviously was a big key to my success.
That was back in 1991. How about that? AAA for Jim Thome. That year, guys, 125 games played, 7 home runs. And then Jim Thome, with that adjustment, all the work he put in over the years, he goes on to hit 612 home runs in the major leagues. And he always goes back to talking about Charlie Manuel Of course, his hitting coach, his minor league manager, eventually his manager in Cleveland, and then his manager in Philadelphia as well. So the great Charlie Emanuel, a huge reason why Jim Thome is a Hall of Famer.
One of the many great stories, I'm sure, that are unearthed by JP with Jim Thome on the latest round of the podcast, The Road to Cooperstown. JP, thanks.
Thanks, guys. All the best. Thank you.
We're going to take a break. We have quite a bit to get to, or quite a lot to unpack, as it were, with the Vans all having arrived at spring training about 3-4 weeks ago. The unpacking was done, but there are still some questions for Harold and I to unpack. Next on
What's the secret to raising your kids the way you have? Well, that doesn't make any sense. There's a lot of good-looking.
春の訪れとともに MLB の熱気もますます高まっています。大谷翔平のスプリングデビュー、山本由伸の新たな挑戦、そして菅野智之の堂々たる登場。私たちはすでに数々の素晴らしい瞬間を目撃しましたが、これはまだ始まりに過ぎません。ロサンゼルス、ドジャースのマウンドに立つ山本由伸、彼の表情からは、昨年のソウルでのデビュー戦とは全く異なる自信が感じられました。昨シーズンは、異国の環境や新たなプレースタイルに適応するための試練の年でしたが、今年は違います。堂々とした投球、洗練されたコントロール、そして日本のエースとしての誇りが彼の投球からにじみ出ていました。昨シーズン、韓国ソウルで行われた開幕戦では緊張から本来のピッチングができず、多くの人が彼の適応力を疑問視しました。しかし今シーズンの彼はすでに別次元の存在になりつつあります。ドジャースのユニフォームをまとい、チームの大黒柱としての自覚を持ち、シーズン開幕へ向けて着々と準備を進めています。彼が持つ直球のキレ、変化球の鋭さ、そして冷静沈着なマウンドさばきはドジャースにとっても大きな財産となるでしょう。一方、菅野智之の姿も印象的でした。35歳という年齢にしてグレープフルーツリーグの初戦でも全く動じないその姿はまさに百戦錬磨のベテランそのもの。緊張しましたかという記者の質問に彼が即答したノーの一言。このシンプルな回答こそが彼の経験と自信を物語っていました。読売ジャイアンツで培った確かな実力が Mlb の舞台でも輝きを放ち始めています。彼はすでに WBC でアメリカ代表との対戦経験もあり、国際舞台でも実力を証明してきました。若手が多く躍動する中で経験豊富なベテランがどのような影響を与えていくのかも見どころの一つです。さらにドジャースの先発ローテーションには新戦力が次々と登場しています。ブレイク、スネルのデビュー、トニー、ゴンソリンの復活、そしてこれから本格始動するスターターたち、まさに MLB 史上最も豪華な14人の先発ローテーションと評されるこの布陣がこれからどのような物語を紡いでいくのか想像するだけでワクワクします。特にスネルの加入は昨年のドジャースに足りなかったピースを埋める存在になるかもしれません。彼がパドレス時代に見せた圧巻のピッチングが再現されるならば、ナショナルリーグ西地区の戦いはますます激しさを増すことでしょう。そしてオープニングデーを控えた今、ファンの皆さんが待ち望んでいるのはやはり大谷翔平のバットが火を吹く瞬間でしょう。エンゼルス時代の仲間たちと対戦するこの試合はまさに感動と興奮に満ちたドラマとなるはずです。彼がどのようなバッティングを見せるのか、そして新天地ドジャースでの第一歩をどのように刻むのか、私たちはその歴史的瞬間を目撃することになります。一方で今シーズンの MLB は若き才能たちの台頭にも注目が集まっています。オリオールズのヘストン、カーシュタッド、ヤンキースのドミニク・スミスといった若手選手が春のキャンプで躍動し、開幕ロースター入りへ向けてアピールを続けています。ジャッジやスタントンのようなスーパースターの陰で彼らのような新鋭がどれほどのインパクトを残すのか、まさに野球の醍醐味が詰まったシーズンとなるでしょう。特にヤンキースはオフシーズンにホアン・ソトを獲得したものの、ジャンカルロ・スタントンのコンディションが不透明なため、彼の代役となる若手の活躍が求められます。そして忘れてはならないのがワールド・ベースボール・クラシック WBC の話題です。3月3日に開幕する WBC 予選ではコロンビア代表が再び世界を驚かせるのか大注目です。2017年と2023年の WBC ではアメリカ代表やドミニカ共和国と死闘を繰り広げたコロンビア、その戦いぶりを思い出すだけで再び心が熱くなります。過去の WBC での戦いを振り返ると、コロンビアがアメリカ代表をあと一歩で破りそうになったあの試合、 そしてドミニカ共和国との壮絶な接戦、あと少しで歴史を変えられたという場面が何度もありました。今回こそその壁を突き破ることができるのか。この戦いの行方をぜひ一緒に見届けましょう。そしてMLB の歴史を語る上で欠かせないのが伝説のプレイヤーたちのストーリーです。今回の ROAD2 COPERSTOWN のゲストはジム・トーミ。彼が自身のバッティングスタイルを確立するまでの物語はまさに努力と革新の結晶でした。彼を導いたのはかつてクリーブランド・インディアンス、ゲンガーディアンズの監督であったチャーリー・マニュエル。彼の一言がトーミのバッティングフォームを大きく変え、結果として彼は MLB 史に残る612本のホームランを記録しました。小さなことが大きな変化を生む、この言葉の重みを私たちは彼のストーリーを通じて改めて感じることができます。MLB のシーズンはいよいよ本格始動します。大谷翔平、山本由伸、菅野智之、そして新たなスターたちが織りなすこの壮大なドラマを一緒に楽しみましょう。あなたの注目する選手は誰ですか？ぜひコメント欄で教えてください。そしてこれからの MLB の激動のシーズンを一緒に楽しむためにチャンネル登録をお忘れなく。あなたのいいねやコメントが私たちのエネルギーになります。それでは次回の動画でまたお会いしましょう。